What stupid rule at your work or school backfired beautifully? Story 1. Back in the early 1980s, when I was in grade 8, our school decided to ban shorts because someone thought some of the shorts people were wearing were a little too short. The girls all said, no problem. Mini skirts were in fashion at the time, so they decided they could all just wear minis. The boys were not happy and threatened to wear skirts too. The shorts ban was quickly lifted. Story 2. I was told that men could not have long hair. I asked for the policy in writing, and the manager issued a memo stating that males with long hair were a safety hazard. That didn't go over well with HR, and all women were then required to tie their hair back. The manager was not very popular after that. Story 3. I was working in a call center, and the client was a very popular video game company, Leave Luck to Heaven. I was on the advanced Wi-Fi team, and we were instructed by the team supervisor not to assist customers after a successful connection. For example, if someone called because they were trying to watch Netflix and were getting an error code, we'd help them connect to the Wi-Fi and then just say, deuces, instead of checking whether Netflix was working. I was a QA lead at the time, and I fought back hard against this policy. I thought it was ridiculous and just awful customer service. We were there to help, and it took literally an extra 30 seconds to test this issue. I was also suspicious of the reason behind the new rule. It was implemented because the supervisor didn't want to deal with one representative who had been there for 7 years, who had no reason to be on the advanced Wi-Fi team, as she didn't understand Wi-Fi at all. She also famously had a long handle time, and he was trying to cut this back. 2 things came from this situation. At first, I lost the argument. You can't argue with the advanced Wi-Fi team supervisor when you're just a lead. But just because I lost the battle didn't mean the war was over. And I'm nothing if not petty. First, I needed ammo. I pulled a week's worth of customer surveys after this new rule was implemented. And immediately the surveys showed a decline for the Wi-Fi team. Customers felt we were just trying to get them off the phone, or worse, they had to call back because their issue wasn't really fixed. With ammo ready, the supervisors and leads had our weekly meeting with the client about quality. It went over well, and as expected, they asked if we had any other questions. I jumped at the opportunity. I explained the new rule we implemented, how much I thought it was a problem, and showed how just 1 week of it had affected our customer survey. Lo and behold, client was pissed. They said that at the end of the day, if an extra minute makes a customer happy, then you take that minute. The supervisor who made the rule tried his best to defend it, but ultimately he failed because he was lying through his teeth. And there wasn't a good reason. I volunteered to write the email explaining why we were nullifying the rule henceforth. Story 4. Our teacher, the school was fine, but the teacher wasn't. Told us we couldn't have our hoods up on our hoodies. In response, the second she left the room, every single person with a hoodie put their hood over their head. No one even said anything. We just did it. Story 5. My school, you were always able to buy food, drinks, etc., despite it being a large school with around 2,000 students from multiple age groups. We even have a McDonald's and a Subway right in front of the school. However, they recently changed the system, requiring students to use an app to purchase anything. The problem is, you can only load money onto the app using PayPal or credit cards, and credit cards are rare here. We primarily use debit cards and don't need credit cards. The issue with PayPal is that you must be at least 18 years old, and you have to complete quite a lot of paperwork to set it up for automatic bank deductions. This led to a situation where, in my class of only adults, only 3 people, including me, could buy anything at the school. As for younger students, they couldn't buy anything without their parents' help. The upside is that now you never have to wait 15 minutes to get food, since no one is buying anything. Story 6. In my senior year of high school, we moved into a new school building across from a grocery store. The builders accidentally put up walls over the plumbing for water fountains, so there was a huge increase in the use of reusable water bottles. The school even put up a vending machine entirely stocked with water. Now, it's worth mentioning that this was in Washington State, where you can buy liquor in grocery stores along with anything else. Some freshmen got the bright idea to start stealing vodka from the store across the street, filling disposable water bottles with it, and selling it to other students. This led to a huge problem with a large number of drunk underclassmen wandering the halls of the school and getting into trouble. Finally, the staff had a meeting to discuss what to do. Someone suggested banning water bottles. So students had no access to water during school hours, and everyone was enraged. Articles were written about it, parents complained, and people all over town were talking about how we had a ban on water. Eventually, they lifted the ban, and the vodka problem resumed. Story 7. In my dorm, if you did something that triggered the smoke fire alarm, you had to do a safety presentation for everyone on your floor. This was intended to deter pranksters from pulling the alarm. A guy on our floor was making grilled cheese in the kitchenette and burned it, which legitimately triggered the fire alarm. Afterward, he explained that since it had been a legitimate alarm and not a prank, he assumed he wouldn't have to do a presentation. He was, of course, wrong. So the next Wednesday night, the entire floor assembled, and we were treated to a 30-minute safety presentation on the dangers of grilled cheese sandwiches. It contained literally nothing about fire safety. It was all about choking hazards and cholesterol. Our RA was furious, but the student pointed out that the write-up he'd been given just said safety presentation. We didn't get any more presentations after that. Story 8. We got a new manager for our office. She was an outside hire and was trying to prove herself quickly. And she was obsessed with efficiency. During her first week, she sent out a very rudely worded email about employees eating at their desks. We have a very small break area, 4 tables, and about 300 employees work here, and that we all had to stop eating at our desks because it was not efficient to eat and try to work at the same time. Through a coordinated effort by some of the more sassy people in the office, they all took their lunches at the same time and filled the break room with about 90 people. Elbow to elbow, they all ate standing up. Literally the next day, she sent out a follow-up email saying that we could eat at our desks, but advised us to take a break from our work from time to time. It was pretty funny. Story 9. A new manager got rid of the sofa in the break room so people couldn't nap during their hour-long lunch break. No one overslept or abused the privilege, but it was good to have the option on a tough day. One stoner guy started sleeping in other places, including between walls and in the warehouse. That's when we started losing him and couldn't find him, as he'd go into a deeper sleep and was less likely to be disturbed. Didn't lose his job somehow. That place had a hard time hiring. Edit. To clarify where the stoner guy would go, we'd find him between walls and shelves. It was a DIY store that had been something else years before. There were random partition walls and oddly laid out shelving units everywhere. A real mess of a store layout. He had quite a few places to hide in and nap. Story 10. My high school was trying to prevent a senior prank since the class before us had gone a little overboard. They basically told us not to have one, threatening that anyone who did anything would get into a lot of trouble, yada yada. Somebody had an idea. What if we did an anti-prank? The idea floated around the halls and everyone knew what we were going to do. For an entire week, every senior was going to bring a potentially threatening item for a senior prank and do nothing with it. The week started, and that Monday, nearly the entire senior class carried a banana with them to every class. This was a school of about 2,600 students with a graduating class of 650. So there were hundreds of bananas being carried through the halls, with teachers and assistant principals freaking out. By noon, an announcement was made that all bananas needed to be eaten or thrown away, or they would be confiscated. By that afternoon, every banana was taken away from the students. The next day got even better. Somebody had the idea that we should all bring a gallon jug of water with us to class. And to no one's surprise, again there was an announcement that they were going to start taking up the water jugs for fear of what we were going to do with them. But this time, the students got creative. People were resentful now and didn't want to give up their precious water. Students got creative, hiding the jugs in backpacks, avoiding teachers in the hallways, whatever it took to keep their water jugs. But alas, most of the jugs were confiscated. So the students took to social media. Tons of tweets and mentions were sent out to local news stations, TMZ, Oprah, Ellen, anyone they could think of. All of these messages were along the lines of, school is confiscating all water, not allowing students to drink water, high school drought 2KSX, we're dying, send help. You get the picture. Before the end of the day, 2 different news reporters were at our school. Yes, we had the last laugh after all. School school made silly rules to prevent us from having a senior prank. We anti-pranked them, and their rules backfired, leading to lots of negative press over nothing malicious ever happening. Story 11. If you violated the dress code policy, you had to wear these really big gray sweatpants or sweatshirts that said DCV in big orange letters. Dress code violation. It became a thing to get caught because they were apparently really comfortable. When the administration finally caught on that people were trying to get them on purpose, they changed it so that you got in-school suspension. Jokes on them for that too. Lots of kids preferred that over being in class. Story 12. When I was in kindergarten during the morning announcements one day, they came on and said, "And please, no throwing snowballs. There's a chance you might accidentally get some rocks in them." You could see on the faces of all 20-some students the realization that, OMG, we could put rocks in them. Story 13. I'm a programmer. At a previous job, the developers and teams were measured by the number of feature requests they completed. We figured out how to subdivide everything to blow it up into the maximum number of feature requests possible. For example, a manager might request a new report. We'd set up separate feature tickets: create button, make button blue, make button respond when clicked, implement business logic, display results in grid, allow sorting of grid, and so on. We'd subdivide a one-day task into 21-hour tasks. Management loved it. Our team looked 20 times as productive, despite deliberately slowing ourselves down with red tape. Story 14. They made a new rule where we had to ask permission to use the restroom during lunch. We all coordinated, and the whole cafeteria would raise their hands at once to request to go. They responded by sending us 2 at a time. We did this for a few days, then changed our approach. Everyone would just get up at once and go to the restroom without permission. They never officially did away with the rule, but the teachers on duty in the lunchroom eventually just stopped enforcing it. Edit. It's interesting how many people responded with something like, "My school had the same rule," and how many people said something like, "WTF, that's the craziest rule I've heard of. Is this even real?"